Hi everyone, I'm Alex from the WEM team in Amsterdam, and I'm going to demonstrate you the all code versus no code application development. I'm going to start with the all code application development, and developers can find a lot of frameworks and tools on the internet, and on YouTube you got all kinds of tutorials that can explain the use of the frameworks and the tools that's been around. We're going to explain something about the Node.js, the Vue, Express, Angular, and the MongoDB all-code environment. And in this case, we're going to use what the developers call the mean stack application development environment. So we're going to use the mean stack application environment to develop an application. We're going to create a very simple contact list application using all code development. So first we're going to install the software. So the Node.js and the MongoDB software, we're going to download it from the website, and it's all free of charge, so it's available, and you can download it and install this one on your computer. We do the same with the database we're going to use for our application. This is going to be the MongoDB database. So we're going to download the software and install it locally on our machine. And if you're a developer and you already got the Node.js and the MongoDB installed on your computer, then you can skip all this. So you don't need to install the software. And it takes about 6 minutes of the time to install the software. The next step is to create and initialize your project and install some npm packages. Well, I'm not a developer, but I got some explanation from my developer colleague Gijs. And what he explained is that you have to create a folder, you have to initialize some packages in your package manager, then install your packages and use Express to determine or define your routing. Also within Mongoose you need some more installing of your packages, and this has been done all within the Visual Studio environment. So you need some installation, you need some configuration to take these kinds of steps, and it takes about 18 minutes to have this configuration and installation been done. So now we have to communicate with our MongoDB database, and to do so we are going to create some endpoints. So these endpoints are basically like functions that you can use within your application to, for example, add or delete or initialize your database. So all these functions you have to program yourself also within Visual Studio and create the endpoints that you need. So after done this, you have all the functions that you can use within your application. So this takes about 36 minutes to have all the software installed and also communicate with your database. So now we can start to populate our MongoDB with some test data, and we can use some test tools to do that, like Postman, for example. And you can have some test data into your database. For example, we can get the name and the first name, the last name, and also a phone number into the database. So this was pretty much the back end of the application, so the server side of the application. So now we can create the client-side code for the application. We still need some installation to do. We need some packages to install and to configure something, to do some routing also. And then we can start writing code to get the data from the server and commit some data changes. And after that, we can present the data from the server by using HTML and HTML pages. So we can write our HTML code, we can write our user interaction using HTML pages. And before we can present something to our user or to the user screen, we're gonna have to add something like a theme or a look and feel. And we are going to use Bootstrap technology to do that. In the WEM platform, we also use Bootstrap technology. So we can add some Bootstrap and some fonts to do so. So just go to the Bootstrap website, and here you can download some themes that you can use within your application. So after using the themes, we can start continuing to write our HTML pages and create some fields to enter the data. We can have like an overview of the data. We can have the database endpoints to trigger it from certain buttons or certain actions. So we just continue writing our HTML page for our contact list, and there is the first result also. So now you can see the Bruce Wayne is like the test data we just entered with Postman. There is a delete button, there's an add button. So now we can enter some data, click on the add button, and there you have the data in the database, just with the functions that we created, with the endpoints we created. And we can just fine-tune the application by using HTML code. We can fine-tune our application by adding some spaces between the records. But this is pretty much how the application looks like. And it took like 1 hour to get there to build this application using code. But you're still not there. The application is still not online. So you have to deploy your application to a production server. So you need to rent a server. You need to install the software on that server. You need to configure your app for that server, and then copy your application that you've just built on your local machine to that rented server. And then you can register your hostname and configure your DNS. And after that, you're pretty much ready to get your application live. So after like 2 hours, you have your all code application deployed to a production server. And if you have all the software already on your local machine, like the Node.js or the MongoDB, then maybe you can do this application within like hour and a half. So now let's look at a no-code environment like WEM and build the same application, but then using WEM, a no-code platform. These two quotes are from Albert Einstein, and I love these quotes. So everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. That's really suitable for the WEM platform. So all the complex coding that we just seen within the application development using all code, that could be made simpler. And using a no-code platform, you can create the same application, but you can add some more. You can have even some complex stuff added to that application without any coding. And the second quote is interesting as well. So imagination is more important than knowledge. When you have all the imagination to create your application, then with a platform like WEM, you can build that platform as easy as it gets. So now we're going to build the same contact list application, but now using the no-code WEM platform to do so. So what you see now is the newest modeler, the 4.0 modeler, and I'm going to create a new project. And I'm going to call this project also contact list, and I'm going to put it within my personal workspace. So there's some localization, and there's also some domain names that's been generated by the WEM platform for your staging and for your live URL. Next, we can select a bootstrap theme for our project. So I'm going to select a dashboard basic blue, and we can start creating our application. And creating applications within WEM is basically creating flowcharts. So we use flowcharts to create our application. I'm going to drag and drop a blue user interaction node to have a user interaction screen. I'm going to call this one contact list overview. So there's a contact list overview, and the only thing I have to do, I'm going to connect the start node with the blue user interaction node. When I double click on the user interaction node, I can now already preview what my application would look like. So at any stage of your development process, you can preview your application. Well, there's nothing in my application right now. So what I want to do is I want to have the data displayed over there. So I'm going to need something like a database to do that. So I'm going to create a new database list. And as you notice, I don't need to install any Mongo database or something like that. It's just within the platform. So I'm going to create a database list called contact list, and I'm going to create the same 3 fields as I did in the all code environment. So these are all text fields. So I'm going to create like a first name, and I'm going to create also a last name. So just go there and add a new field called last name, and I'm going to create a field that's been called phone number. So the same 3 fields that I used within the all code environment I use within this database. And I can drag and drop this data model onto my user interaction screen and present this as a data grid. So I want to have all these fields presented on my screen, and just click on save, and the result is already there. So you already got 3 fields on your screen, but it's still empty. There are no records in it. So I want to have something like a button over there to add some records. So I'm going to drag and drop a button onto the user interaction screen, and we use bootstrap technology, so we can have like add a new contact, have some bootstrap context colors like a green color, and even like an icon like this one. And gonna save this one, and as you will notice, the button is already on the screen, but it still does nothing. So we have to add some business logic to do so. And within WEM, we use exits to do that. So exits are really like, button exits are really like triggers that can trigger other user interaction screens or actions. So I can add a new contact as an exit. And when I go to the flowchart, I can have a green, what we called a list node. It's a database node, which we can use. So select the database you want, and it automatically says it adds a row. So this is like a database action. And the only thing I have to do is I have to connect this green list node with the exit I just created. And the next thing I want to do is I want to have like a user input form or user interaction screen with an input form to input the data. And I can show this form as an overlay, as a new window. I'm going to delete this information, and what I can do, I can drag and drop what we call a form element onto the screen. And I want to have these 3 fields onto my user interaction screen. I can connect the green list node with the details list, and when I click on this button, as you can see, the 3 fields appears in a new window. What I can do now is I can have some other things configured within my screen, like a required field. So the last name and phone number will be required. And the next thing I can do is I want to save the entered data. So when I enter some data, I want to save it. and I want to cancel it if I not like the entered data. So I create two new exits, one when I click on the save button and when I click on the cancel button. So I have to have some exits. One is called save and one is called cancel. So when I click on save, it goes to the save node, and then I want to return to my main screen, so my contact list overview. What I can do next is I'm going to show these buttons within what we call the button bar. So I can have some icons in there, I can have a color, and this save node will appear in the button bar. I can do the same with the cancel button. I can have another icon like an eraser, and I can give it a yellow color. So there are two buttons now placed within the button bar, and I can now just preview my my screen or my application. So when I fill in my first name and I click on save, the last name and phone number are required, so the required validation has been triggered. So when I put in my last name and phone number, click on save, the data is already there. So I can have another contact, for example, the Bruce Wayne, like in the all code example. Bruce Wayne also got a phone number, and when I hit the save button, it's been saved into the database. So this is almost the application you have in the all code, but we need the delete function. So it has an add but also a delete function, and I want to have it like the delete button in an empty column. So I'm going to put this button in the last column, call it delete, give it like a red color, and what I have to do is I have to link it to a button exit, not to the add new contact, but to the delete exit. So when I click on save and I return to my screen, there's also already the two buttons are there, but it still does nothing. So I need to have the business logic behind it. So I'm going to use the same list node, green list node, but instead of adding a row, I'm going to delete a current row. So these are basically your endpoints or your SQL statements. Then return to the save node, and now I can test drive it. So I'm going to delete the Bruce Wayne record, and it's gone. So that's very simple how you build this application. And now I can have like Peter Parker also entered in with his phone number, click on save, and also have again re-enter the Bruce Wayne contact details. So basically this is the application that we've built within the all code environment, but now within a no code environment. So now we can extend the application. For example, we can edit the records, and we can do this very simple. Just drag and drop an arrow onto the screen, create a new button exit, call this button exit, say edit, and when we double click on the screen, we can have something like what we call an on row click. So we can follow a button exit, in this case the edit button exit, and when you preview your application, when you hover over the records and when you click on it, it follows the edit button exit. So now it directly shows the details contact screen, and I can have my name or my phone number changed, and it's already changed in the database. So that's pretty easy, pretty simple. So if you want to extend your data model, that's easy also. Just add some more fields like an email. We can even have some email validation on this field, and just drag and drop it onto the user interaction screen. When you click on save, the field is already there, but it's still empty. So we need to fill this data within the user interaction screen. So just drag and drop the email field onto the user input form, and there you have it. So this is a required field, and when I enter my email address and that's not correct, it states that it's an invalid mail address. So you've got now two validations one required validation and one email validation onto the screen. So this is like very simple. Just in a few seconds you can extend your application. And I can extend it even more. So if you want to have something like address information added to your application, well, just add some fields. In this case, like an address field, it's like a text field. You can have like also a other type of field, like a numeric type of field or other type of fields. So we can use like another address field, but then a numeric type. We can have like the city over there. So we can have a address and a city over there, and we can use this within our user interaction screens also. So just drag and drop your address information, and we can have it on the user interaction screen. So it's now already available. When I click on this record, you can enter your address data. So in this case, this is my home address. So the UNO 66 in Elst is in the Netherlands, and we can have like an address in Amsterdam. So the Lizzie Ansingstraat is in Amsterdam. It's the address of our headquarters of WEM. And then for Bruce Wayne, we can enter an address like in London, so in the UK. So now all the addresses are been inputted into this application and stored in the database. And what we can do next, we can have like the address information displayed on a Google Maps. So we use a Google Map API. In this case, we have a what we call a WEM widget, and that's a Google API. And the only thing I have to do is configure the properties. So the input of this API is a street, house number, and a place. So we already got that in our data model. So we just drag and drop all these fields into the properties and configure the Google API. So when I'm going to preview my application, the API already works. So as you can see, this is very easy to expand your application with like a Google API or other APIs you want. So not only can we have like a Google API, but we can have also other integrations within our project. And integration within WEM is very easy. I've got a few SOAP services as an example. And this is a SOAP service. It's a SOAP service for country information. So you can get some country information based on a ISO code. So what I can do is I can copy paste the web service URL and give it a service name like country services and click on import. So now all the services has been imported. So these are all the methods that you can use within your project. So for example, capital city, when you input a country ISO code, it's got a capital city output as a result. I can drag and drop these fields of these services within my user interaction screen, and I'm going to call this one country ISO code. And after that, I can have like the output also entered. When I use this service or this method within this web service, I can call them from any place in my application or within my workflow. So I want to have something like a button and call this one, creating a new button exit. I'm going to call this one get country information or country info, like this. So I need something like a button and then return the data, so the output to the screen. So I just have to create a button on the screen. Just give it a nice space, then drag and drop a button, and this button I can call the same get country info. I can even get it a color again, and I'm going to link it to the get country info button exit. Again, some space, and now I can just show the output of the service as a label, and got some space. I can have a prefix, so I can have a label before this field, and I'll call this capital city. So click on save, and now when I enter a ISO code, like from the Netherlands it's NLD, and get country info, it invokes the web service and returns with the capital city Amsterdam. So I can do the same with like the Bruce Wayne record, and instead of the Netherlands I can have Great Britain, and the capital city will return as London. So this is very easy to integrate. Another way to integrate with external applications is to use the other integration nodes. And for example, we can have a integration with Excel spreadsheets. So I'm going to create a new flowchart called import data. I'm going to import some data from a Excel spreadsheet. And what I'm going to do is I want to have like this spreadsheet with a first name, last name, phone number, email, my address information been entered with an import node into my project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use also again a user interaction node, and this user interaction node, I'm going to call this one import data, and I'm going to use the CSV file, the Excel file, to import into my database within this project. So I'm going to use one of these gray integration nodes, and this one is the import node. And as you can see, you can have JSON, XML, and I'm going to use the CSV or Excel. It needs a data source, and the data source in this case is a file, so it's a file type. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a temporary folder, and I'm going to create a temporary file within that folder, and I'm going to use the file type file. I'm going to name this one import file and create it. So this is going to be the data source to be input, and this file, so all the data I want to store in the data list. So the destination of this is the data list I already used, so it's the contact list data list. And the next thing I have to do is I have to create some mapping between the headers or the columns within the Excel spreadsheet and the target field in the contact list database. So I've got the first name, and I've also got a column in my spreadsheet that has the same name, so the mapping is like first name is exact the same name. So make sure that the column names that you put right here are the same column names as in the Excel spreadsheet. So phone number is a phone number, but without the dot at the end, and we've got like some address information, and this is address 1, and we got address 2. That's a numeric field. You can see the format at the end, so this is a numeric field. And at last we got a city and an email. Sorry, first the email and then city. So this is basically what you have to do to import the data from the CSV or Excel file. Just check, so you got first name, last name, phone number, email, and the address information. So that seems to be right. The only thing I have to do is connect the user interaction with the integration node, and I'm going to create a button exit and call that one import data. So save the data. So when it's been imported, just save all the data in the list and then return to the user interaction screen. So now what I can do is I can have like an input form where I can select my import file, and after that I'm going to use a space. I need a button to trigger the integration node, so the import node. So, oh, this is import data. I can also have it a color like that, and some icon like a import item, or no, there's nothing there, so we need something like cloud like this. And when I import the data, I want to have all the data that's been entered into my data list, the contact list, being displayed. So like this, and I can have the first name and last name. Well, we can have all the data that there has been entered. So click on OK. There's your list. And when I click on save, we can already test drive this application. So I can test drive the import node. Just click on preview and just check. I have to link this one to the button exit, import data, and then we're good to go. So now I can test drive my application and try to import the data. So the import file is one that I have on my computer. It's a CSV file. I think it's that one. And then click on import data. Well, there's an error now. It says it failed to import the data and the header found address 1 was not found. So there's something wrong with the mapping or something like that. So let's check what is wrong. So this is like a error message for the modeler, and there's something wrong with one of these columns. So let's check the Excel spreadsheet, and there it says address. Okay, see, okay, there is a space between address and the number 1, and there shouldn't be one. So I'm going to click on save, return to my application. This is correct right now. So address 1, address 2 without the space between the address and the 1 and the 2. And now we can test drive again the application. Just go back to your user interaction screen, click on browse, have the same file been imported, and click on import data. And now as you can see, all the data has been entered. So next to the 3 records that were already there, there are 4 records added to the data list. There is a flaw with Düsseldorf. So the address of Thomas Heinz has a false character in it. So I can just have the umlaut within the correct state, and there you have it. So when I click now on Düsseldorf or the Thomas Heinz, it's already there. So we created this application within like 10 or 12 minutes, including integration, including edit functions, and more of that. So we created the initial application within 8 minutes and added some more functions and integration to it. So we integrated with a Google API, and we integrated with a Excel import function like within 15 minutes. And we did almost the same with a company called Tech Mahindra. And Tech Mahindra, they have a lot of highly skilled developers. So we trained like 12 veteran developers into the WEM platform, and they did proof of concept for their end clients like Vodafone and TalkTalk. So they did a proof of concept for Vodafone, and it took them 5 days to build that application within WEM. And we asked them to build the same application within the Java environment that they used to. And it took them about 16 days to develop the same application in Java. We did the same with a POC for TalkTalk, another end client of Tech Mahindra, and they did like the application to build within 7 days with WEM and like 25 days within their .NET environment. So it's like a 70% development time reduction after just a few days, like 3 days of training into WEM.